Oracle Priestess Marguerite. Okay, so Denny, introduce yourself.
Yeah. Okay.
Sebastopol.
Yeah.
You got your thing.
Yeah. Toddy.
Yep.
Yeah. Santa Rosa.
Yep.
Sonoma County.
Okay. Hi, everybody, and thanks for inviting me. It's really nice to be here. So my claim to fame of late is my YouTube channel. Why is this true? And so I was going to talk to you about how that's developing, because that's really where all my energy is going right now. Sometimes I take out the garbage, but otherwise, the house is going into disrepair. So Jennifer's been very patient with me. That's my wife, Jennifer. So she deserves all the credit, because she's been putting up with me for 33 years. 33 years.
Yes.
Wow.
Correct.
So yeah, this is very much about the goddess energy, and I resonate with everything that Marguerite said. I had the pleasure of doing an interview with her on that very subject, which is a playlist on my YouTube channel about entity attachments, which has been a huge area of discovery, I think, for you and for me and for a lot of other people. And I've been able to interview other people about this issue. So, but going back to the inception for the YouTube channel, back in 1996, I had what I called the Golden Handcuffs job. I was a chief engineer on an oceanographic research vessel down in Los Angeles, California. I've been working there almost 10 years, and I had a full retirement, full benefits. I think I had 5 weeks paid vacation every year. I'd go out on a research vessel. I'm in an own stateroom. Meeting all these PhDs and scientists, and watching whales mate offshore, and we'd deploy these remotely operated submarines down into the Monterey Canyon, and it was people were very envious of my life, and I felt blessed, but I was always someone who knew I was kind of like in the wrong place. I was like, something's not right here. So, but I kind of figured out, like, well, this is what's expected of me, so I'll just do that. And but in 1996, it was like someone poured cold water down my back, and I had this like epiphany. Your whole worldview is erroneous. You need to go back, start over, and figure this thing out. And so, in the midst of that, I also had this epiphany that we needed to sell the house, quit the job, and move to Mount Shasta.
Wow.
So that's what we did. Jennifer had a massage business. I quit my job. We packed up. We moved to Mount Shasta. We lived up there for a year, and I became very involved in a Christian home church movement and the sovereignty movement, and eventually apologetics, which is the defense of Christianity. So, and also home church. So, and that's what I did. And but I also had a Vedic reading done by a very successful Vedic astrologer. So that was kind of interesting. So we lived up for a year in a house that was basically occupied by Mount Shasta itself. The whole house was built as one room with windows 360 degrees. And Jennifer and I could sit at this table, and there was Mount Shasta in all its glory, right staring at us. And it was like living in a postcard, I kid you not. And we would just sit there for rubberneck for 3 months while we got used to living there. And it was very different than the Bay Area, I got to tell you. And I think, I'm looking back at it now, I think I was getting some kind of like downloads at that time that I really wasn't conscious of. So Jennifer's father's health was failing, so we moved back down to the Bay Area. We live in Sebastopol now. And then I worked for 15 years for an instrument manufacturer, becoming kind of closed off and a little bit more unhappy each year. And then in 2013, these energy, what I call energy pulses, I think they are related to the Schumann frequency spikes that we've been seeing, were really aggravating me. And my only solution for that was to drink. And the alcohol really just settled me out. It made me feel like I could cope. But I knew that the drinking part of it was going to eventually cause a car wreck, literally. But I, was still successful in my job and whatever. And I was trying all these different modalities. People had studied Bruce Lipton and all these different therapies and remote healing and this and that. And finally, I had a reading with Vidya. She says, "Oh, you have an entity attachment. I'm going to send you over to a friend of mine, Carl Mullison, and he'll do a treatment on you." Within I think 48 hours, I had my treatment set up with Carl Mollison. And he said, sure enough, you got an entity attachment. It was an uncle from a past life who was attached to you. And that's what was making you drink in response to these higher frequencies that were bringing all your shit up, making you feel uncomfortable. And so he removed the entity, which was this uncle, sent him to the light, and my life changed. And 3 months later, I quit my job. And I started my YouTube channel a few months later. I read the Telos books. I found out about Cobra. We started the weekly meditations in that same period of time. And then me, Elizabeth Whitney, and John Lord, who I don't see very much anymore, decided to do a presentation at the Sebastopol Grange about the event. Because by that time, I'd found out what a lot of us know is that humans and the earth were in deep trouble. And there was a lot of forces and things that were combining to create a rather sad end for humanity and the earth if things were just allowed to proceed as they go. And so one of the reasons I was very intrigued by the message from this fellow named Cobra and about the event itself was a solution that was already underway. They called it the resistance movement. And it involved extraterrestrials in some fashion. There wasn't a whole lot of detail provided in that regard, but we were going to get help, but we had to do the work. And that was the message. And also a lot of historical stuff that Cobra had posted on his website. And so that was very compelling to me because I thought, well, this is a solution that seems very plausible, given that the majority of humans don't really understand where they're at right now in terms of the cabal's effort to create basically a slave planet. And if things were going to continue, that we weren't going to be able to get out of it just on our own wits. So now a lot's changed since then. But when we did the presentation, we talked about Cobra, we talked about the event. We had some fortuitous things occurred. There was an article in the Bohemian that was put out the day before. We had 50 people show up, and it was free. We just paid for it out of our own pocket. And I did the introduction, and then Elizabeth did the presentation about Cobra. And at that time, I was very fixed on this idea that one of the big problems was the male paradigm. And one of the big solutions was moving us away from that, reintroducing the goddess energy. And I said, yeah, well, I could talk about the event, but I wanted Elizabeth to do it, primarily because of her history with Cobra. She, going all the way back to 2012, she was one of the first journalists that actually did an interview with him and really studied him and understood his work. She was involved with Jose Arguello going all the way back to harmonic convergence in 1987. So she was very well equipped to give this presentation, and she did a wonderful job. So that started us with this little core group of meditators. Every Sunday we'd go out to the redwood trees in back of my house, and that went on until they changed the time to make it easier for the meditators in Asia to participate. So now it's a morning group, and so the morning people come, and the other people meditate at home because it's 9 o'clock in the morning, so we don't have a lot of morning people involved. So, and then shortly after that, I decided, I still had this desire, this need to get the word out, and also to get your word out. And it wasn't about, I wanted to provide a platform for non-whistleblowers, for people that weren't famous, so people had experiences, and so they could get on a YouTube channel and tell their story about what they were learning and not feel isolated, ostracized, because there's a lot of people becoming aware of what we're aware of. They don't have anybody in the family to talk to about this. They can't go to work at the cooler and talk about ascension and aliens and entity attachments. Yeah. People just aren't going to accept that in normal conversation in large part, except for Sebastopol. So, which brings up another story we don't have time for. But anyway, so I said, so let's start the YouTube channel. And so what I wanted to do, I had already gone through my proselytizing phase. My niece used to call me a Jesus freak, and behind my back it was probably a Bible thumper too. But so I thought, well, I want other people to tell their story. I'll have time to tell my story, but I want them to tell their story so that other people could see other people that were like them and being in an environment where they were comfortable to talk about what they were learning. And so my first interview was Aaron. So if you go back on my YouTube channel and you look at the very first interview that I did, it was Aaron, and she tells her story on my channel. And then from there it went to this person, that person. Alan was on there. Alan's got a very interesting story. It might be a book someday.
We talked about that earlier.
Okay. No promises. But he's under a lot of pressure right now. So, but we just had I was blessed with a great variety of people who were willing to do this in person with me, do it on Skype. I slowly learned how to edit videos and put stuff together like that and create little graphics and tell little stories on video. So my video channel, my YouTube channel is called Why Is This True? And the theme was reveal and forgive, and your answer is the most important one. And that was kind of where I was trying to camp out. And I felt like if I stuck with that, I'd pretty much be useful to people no matter what happened. And so far, so good. We've had some very interesting hiccups along the way, which I can tell you about, or you can watch some of the videos and you'll figure them out for yourself. So it's called Why Is This True? Your answer is the most important one. And you spoke to this very eloquently about humans are very programmed to go find a leader and to give up their power and do what somebody and adopt the opinions of someone else and in doing so giving their power away. And what we're learning is that the way forward is to stop doing that and start deciding for ourselves what's true, what's not true, what is worth believing, who we should pay attention to, and so I try to support that whenever I can, and also support as much as I can us allowing the disagreements and loving and supporting people even though we may not agree with them. It doesn't mean we need to actively support somebody. Like I just came through a situation where we had this little at the end of Mercury retrograde, everybody decided that we needed to out somebody. So Cobra got attacked, Corey got attacked on this, mostly on Facebook and internet and YouTube and whatever, and people were like outing each other and I need to protect you from this disinformation agent and all this kind of stuff, and so. These are the people that need to be included in this whole reveal and forgive thing, right? So they think they might be helping us by alerting us to what they believe is true about these whistleblowers and stuff. And for me, I think it's so helpful just to take a step back and try to look at this in the bigger picture. None of us are going to be revealing what we know about ascension, about whistleblowers, about the secret space program or all that stuff. None of us are going to get that 100% right. It's just not part of the package. We're all going to make mistakes. But what we don't want to do is start fighting with each other about that and realize that we do unfortunately have a common enemy. It's an enemy that we found out that we as humans using love can defeat. And so and that's the prize, right? So I say reveal and forgive, reveal and forgive, reveal and forgive. And what Marguerite was talking about, I think is very important right now, is that one of the things we need to reveal is this whole reptilian alien agenda. They have the patience to manipulate us in a very sophisticated manner. And they have the patience to let this play out over generations. So once we realize what the problem is, we can apply this solution. And we have the power to apply that solution irrespective of events or solar flashes or how much ET help we get if we keep our eye on the prize. That's just my opinion. That's just kind of what I'm starting to figure out for myself. There may be other solutions or ways of looking at this out there, and all comers welcome. In fact, there's as many valid solutions to this problem as there are people on this earth. And so that all goes back to us taking our power back and figuring that out for ourselves, because we each have these like huge, amazing, powerful contributions that we can make if we just go ahead and have the faith that we can apply those, and don't be afraid of making a mistake, you know. And I'll be the poster boy for mistakes. I can tell you about a lot of them. One of them was really interesting. It's getting some traction now. Anthony and I went. This is Anthony Dernberger, who's been very supportive of my channel, and we met this guy. His name is John Titor II, and we went to Time Travel Con, and we met John, and we did an in-person interview in the back of a restaurant in front of Anthony's. And so we heard his whole story, put the video out and everything, and then there were some developments, and we find out that John Titor II's real name is Dana Stern, and he has a history of doing cons, and he has a book deal, and he already wrote the book, and so and there's Denny. Why is this true? Well, it ain't, And, so it was a very good experience for me. The interview's still up there, and it was like, okay, reveal and forgive. Let's get with the program here, right? Let's reveal John Titor II and forgive him, right? He did, he could be by what we call a sociopath or whatever, not care who he hurts or whatever, but he's still one of these beings that were created out of the fabric of God, and he could be embraced and loved for what he is. Let him work out his path. Don't try to get in the way of the two front tires, because he's still driving. But you get my drift here, So I'm gonna leave that interview up, and then we've had some other ones that had different twists and turns and stuff. But I now have almost since May of 2016, 70 different people that I've interviewed on my channel, and from all different walks of life. I flew up to Canada and interviewed a woman who alleges to be on a 60 and back secret space program, Elena Kapolnik, who just did a 4-hour channeling interview with Carl Mullison, who I'm doing this channeling series interview with. We just finished one that went that's going to go public today. It's been such a whirlwind. I don't know if I posted it public yet, but if it isn't, it's going to go public tonight with Phil Schneider. Well, I don't know if you know about Phil Schneider, but he was one of the guys who spilled the beans on the Dulce base. The Dulce base. So we had a 1-hour session with Phil Schneider from the light, and where Carl had to do a spirit rescue on him. And this is fascinating stuff. Wow. So we have this list of people that Carl and I are going to keep doing these channeling series with, and I'm learning about the communication with light beings right now. And it's fascinating, and I'm learning so much, and I'm in awe of all the things I don't know, all the things that I don't know that I don't know, that we're going to get to find out about.
That's right.
So anyway, how am I doing on time?
I don't know. What time is it?
It's probably 8.
Oh,
Okay.
hey,
So
15 minutes.
what would be fun now is just if you guys have any questions, I'd love to answer questions.
Yeah.
And then we could just fill up the last 15, is it 15 minutes or so?
15
Okay,
minutes,
15 minutes, I'd love to answer questions.
So then maybe repeat the question.
Probably everybody, a lot of your people know, but I don't know who Cobra is. Can you try to explain?
Cobra is a fellow from Eastern Europe. He does conferences, so he is someone that could be met, but most of his online presence is anonymous. He started a blog in 2012, and he started talking about something called The Event. So this is very much akin to what David Wilcock was talking about, the solar flash, the solar sneeze or whatever, when the planet is overcome with an energy that basically wakes everybody up. And concurrent with that is a faction of humans who have gone underground, so to speak, and that are working in the role of white hats and taking down the cabal, the powers that be. And then they're actually going to arrest these people, and they're going to do like a monetary reset, and they're going to start this pattern of positivity for humans on the planet with free energy, release technology, and everything. And he's been posting different facets of this idea ever since 2012. So he does have conferences where you can meet him in person, but even on the audio interviews with this fellow, they scramble his voice.
I wondered about that.
So you can't even recognize his voice.
might help to tell us what his name, Cobra, means.
Oh,
It's an
compression
acronym.
breakthrough.
Compression
Breakthrough. Compression breakthrough.
What's O mean? What's the O stand?
I don't know, but that's what they say.
CO,
It's compression
CO.
breakthrough.
Letter of Cobra.
Compression.
Yeah.
That's a word.
Yeah.
So
That-
he's also a Pleiadian, and he describes himself as a
You're right.
Pleiadian ambassador, and very
Yeah.
clearly states he has access to information that goes way back in time,
Mhm.
forward in time,
Right.
across.
He's
many
been off
times.
planet in this incarnation,
Yeah.
etc. Yeah.
So just knowing about what he has access to just contributes to his credibility.
Thank you.
Yeah, and he's one of the people that have been recently attacked, by this guy who went on the Gary Larrabee show, and he calls himself the one who knows or something like that. And from my perspective, a lot of this is just, excuse my French, silly nonsense that can be safely ignored. If you want to believe what Cobra says, great. If you don't, great. But it really doesn't. It's not one of the things that has to be rise to the level of us, attacking each other and calling each other liars and stuff like that. It's not. It doesn't contribute to what we need to do. So,
Thank you.
any other questions or?
What is the Chimera group?
Chimera. Well, I haven't made a study of that, but I think from Cobra's perspective, he indicates those as very high level negative forces that work with other entities for the control of the planet, and they are, I guess, intimately involved in. He characterizes this as a hostage situation. So he talks about stranglet and toplet bombs, and there's some things that if you look into seem to make a lot of sense as to the way the geopolitics and exopolitics play out. And so I read a lot. I'm one of these guys that I read like 4 books, simultaneously, and I'll get through one, I'll get some questions answered, I'll drop it and get another one. And but my primary focus is the interviews, and where I'm led to go to the next interview, or lately with Carl, it's been like the next channeling subject. And we've had some very interesting synchronicities on that. Like we did one with Frank Wisner, who was he was kind of the fellow who set the tone for the CIA when at the end of the war, Truman decided to create the CIA, and he was developing an anti-communist resistance movement in Hungary. And there was a speech that was released before Khrushchev could give the speech, and in 1956-55, the Hungarians revolted, and the Soviets came in and crushed the revolt. And Frank Wisner had set up this whole resistance movement with the idea that the United States would come in and help the Hungarians retain their sovereignty from the Soviets. Well, it never happened. 20,000 Hungarians died, perished, while Frank stood off to the side and watched all his creation fall apart. He eventually committed suicide in 1965. He's one of the guys that we channeled in this interview, and Carl had to do a spirit rescue on him. He was not successfully transitioned to the light. So we did the spirit rescue, and then we did the channeling. Well, almost right on top of that interview, I had just finished one with Steve Smalley, who does all the meditation videos for Cobra. Guess where he's from? Hungary. So I didn't even know, I hadn't even put this together. And then here's the 2 interviews sitting in my channel. I'm going, oh my gosh, there's Hungary and Hungary. And so I'm starting to think, well, there could be a whole lot of things going on behind the scenes I'm not even aware of, that I'm being utilized in a way that I don't really fully appreciate. And then we had another one, who knows about Jordan Sather? He's like, yeah, okay. You see him on Facebook and YouTube. He's kind of a little miracle kid, 26 years old.
Oh.
And he's so good at putting stuff together. So he does this one about the SSP, and the one whistleblower he mentions is Phil Schneider. Well, Carl and I just finished doing a video on Phil Schneider. And we're like, you can't make this shit up, And so anyway, I love, synchronicities are hella fun, and they just,
How do you determine who's going to be channeled?
Good question.
Mhm.
If you figured it out, please let me know.
Who comes up with the, I mean, does
I
Carl
do-
come up with it? Do you? come up
I do. The other thing I learned was that, I'm working with Duke Brickhouse, who works with Michael Sala, and Duke is an attorney, and he's really done his homework on the whole ET UFO secret space program, the history of ufology and everything. And so he supplied the questions for the Phil Schneider interview, right? And they were way better than mine, And so we asked the questions, and I told Carl about it, and Carl was like, "Whoop, time out." He says, the light beings know who wrote the questions. The light beings know the intentions behind the questions. The light beings answered those questions for Duke. And I'm like, oh, okay. And it was very enlightening, so I'm slowly getting a handle on it. So the message is that we need to, even though my questions aren't as good from a scholarly perspective, I'm kind of like the one in training for all of this. And it's going to help assist me in this whole being open to the next person and how to make the connections, not only for me, for my education, but for the audience. And it seems to be working, and I just have to trust that that's what's happening.
Can you say more about who Carl is?
Yes.
Yeah, briefly, Carl Mollison is a healer. He's with teamarchangel.com. Now, Vidya is part of this group, I think, Vidya Fraser. She did a reading on me. She's very helpful, and she said she's the one that alerted me to the entity attachment, and she's the one who referred me to Carl. Well, Carl's back in Chicago, and it's kind of one of his specialties. He's kind of like a multifaceted healer who uses light beings, archangels, whatever. And his website's called teamarchangel.com. Yeah. So I interviewed him because I had such a great experience with that. And then months went by. And then out of the blue, he called me up in February. He said, "Yeah, I've got this idea for an interview series that I want to do. And I've been basically instructed to do it with you."
Wow.
And I go, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry.
So two things. One, are you making a living from this now, or how?
No.
Repeat the question, please.
I'm not making a living from this now, but I do have a GoFundMe site, and that was started maybe a couple months ago, and I've got about $850 in there, and I do GoFundMe stuff for other people. Like we're trying to raise money for Duke to come out to Contact in the Desert, so he can be there because he's such a great resource. He's been doing all the Freedom of Information Act requests for Dr. Salif and the research that he's doing with Bill Tompkins, Corey Good, and all the videos and articles and books that he's writing about this. And I highly recommend people, if they're new to this, to go to Dr. Salif because he approaches it from a pretty scholarly perspective, and he includes people beyond Corey and people that are more obscure. He was the one who brought to the public's attention Tony Rodriguez. It was from the Dark Fleet. Very interesting story with that guy.
Physical places. What's happened with the Denver airport underground?
I don't know. It's a great subject, though. But it's a great subject. There's a lot of stuff that's going to come out with this.
The Russians are supposed to be there in that area.
I think for light workers, one of the best areas to focus on right now, and most people don't have the stomach for it, but if you want to push forward disclosure fast, it's going to be Pizzagate.
Yeah, it's
Gonna be what?
Pizzagate.
Pizzagate.
What is that? Can you explain that?
Pizzagate.
You know?
That's the pedophilia rings and the satanic ritual sacrifice of children and human slave trade.
And selling people in
And that's the Achilles heel of the powers that be right now. That's going to expose the cabal. It's going to expose all the Illuminati figures, and it's going to expose their connections to the reptilian alien agenda for humans. And we're removing layers of what this is about through these channeling sessions I do with Carl. The tone and the channeling sessions with Carl is hard for a lot of people to watch, but the people who can watch them are getting a lot out of them. There's a lot of stuff being revealed. At first pass, it doesn't really appear that way, but I do have some viewers who go back and they'll watch them more than once, and they'll go, "Oh my gosh, I got all this more information out of it." And one of the things that we learned about Dulce is that Dulce apparently doesn't have a whole lot to do with human genetic cloning experiments or even the human slave trade or all of the other ugly things that we've learned about Dulce. Dulce, according to Phil Schneider from The Light, is the reptilian plan to defend themselves on Earth from other aliens. As far as the reptilians are concerned, we're already been taken care of. We're not an issue for them anymore. Okay.
Ha,
Why?
easy for them to think. They've gotten
Well,
complacent.
Yeah, they have a long-term plan that they thought out very well. And if you look at like the surface, like if you look at the demographics of the United States and for the world for that matter, you kind of have to agree with them because there's not that many of us out there right now. We have huge power to change it around, but most of us have not accepted that power yet.
Right.
Most of us are still waiting for Corey to give us another guy show, or Michael Sala to come out with another book.
What about the idea that the lions cut the head off of the reptilian overlords?
Well, I think we're going to find out that there's bits of truth everywhere, but I think the take-home message for me in all of this is it's time to get to work. We came here to get to work, so let's get to work, and we each to find out what that is for each one of us. You know.
So I've been very moved by Cobra's call to people to bring in light and send light out to the planet and to all beings, and how important it is from his perspective in terms of some of the negative stuff, a lot of the negative stuff that's coming towards us. So is there anything you might want to say about that?
No, I absolutely support it. I've been hosting the weekly meditations for almost 2 years now. So it's very important. It's not the whole thing though. For some people it may be the only thing, but you're the only one who can decide whether that's it or not. There's a lot of people that have parked themselves there telling themselves that it's sufficient. When for them, that's actually not true. They just found a safe place to put themselves for the time being. And so this whole thing, take your power back, is also take your responsibility back, you know, and, you know, your answer is the most important one. So don't ask me, your answer is the most important one. We all know that deep down inside. And that's what brought me to quit my job and to trust God that I'd be taken care of if I do what I came here to do, even late in life, you know. So I hope to be an example for that. And, you know, I may not succeed. I found out in my previous lives I did not succeed. I failed many, many times. But maybe it prepared me for what's going on now. So, and we have a lot of support, but we have to ask for it. That was the other thing that I was told from Carl, is that the divine realm will come to our aid in spades, but we have to ask for it. You can't just be passive about it. You have to actively ask for them and be specific about what you want. And try to couch it in terms of service to others and not just stuff that, you know, you want a new car or something. You know, it's like, you know, we all have a job here to do, and, you know, and the lucky ones figure out what it is. One thing I can tell you right now, I am so much happier. You know, I feel like I can do something that means something now.
Make a difference.
Yeah, maybe I can make a difference. You know, and it's very good.
I have a question. Some of us have been kind of following Gordon Davidson. Do you know Gordon?
Oh yeah, yeah.
So he talks a lot about the polls. His prediction is that it'll be this year. You were referencing David Wilcox and talking about the solar flash. One of the things Gordon says is that once that flash or pulse hits, it'll, depending on your level of evolution, you'll experience it differently, anywhere from waking up and looking at your wife and husband saying, I really love you, or starting to see the dimensions and whatever. But he also says that all these lower level entities and all this lower level stuff, those people will transition off the planet, and we'll see a mass exodus, and that all this stuff that you're sort of referencing will be non-existent. We'll be living on a planet that's, you know, in the fifth dimension. So I just wondered what you thought about that, and if Wilcox, second part of the question is, if Wilcox has a prediction for when that solar flash might happen. He thinks it's this year or not.
Yeah, for me, it's very, very interesting and very compelling. The more I learn, the less I'm drawn to that type of information, or yeah, I guess that's the right way to say it. And the more I'm drawn to trying to empower, individuals, and let that big global galactic stuff take care of itself. It's either going to happen or it's not going to happen. The question is, what are you doing? That to me, that's where the rubber meets the road, and that's where big wonderful things can happen on many different levels, personally. So yeah, I don't know. I think a year ago I was a lot more attracted to the idea of an event, and less so now. I think those things seem very plausible to me, and I think there's some very strong arguments for them. But like I said earlier, my devotion right now is to the YouTube channel and to helping people to tell their stories and trying to make these connections and tie these little dots together and whatever.
Just a quick follow-up to that.
Take the mic.
So what's the relationship between personal spiritual process and kind of what you're talking about, which is activism?
Well, again, it sounds like a cop-out, but your answer is the most important one. The question has loads of data behind it that you've been working on your whole life, right? So, for me, you can't separate the two. They're kind of all in one of the same thing, and I guess the best way is like you sit there and you ask yourself, am I really doing what I'm called to do? And then try to answer that question as honestly as you possibly can. And don't be hard on yourself about the answer, because maybe you don't have the whole answer yet, but you're still scratching at it, and you're still willing to scratch at it, and you're still willing to look at answers that maybe you don't feel that good right now. I don't know if that probably doesn't help too much. Yeah. Okay. Well, I
think Christy had a
oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I'd like you to elaborate. You could just elaborate a little bit more about the entities thing, that what have you heard since that time about?
Oh yeah.
About.
Well, there's a group of people, and Marguerite's one of them, who's looked into this in very helpful ways. I know, Mark, you've helped a lot of people with this issue, as far as I know. I know Carl's helped a lot of people with this issue. Vidya is very adept at finding out for people if it is an issue in their life. According to Carl, most people have some type of entity attachment issue. And it seems very plausible to me that is indeed the case. It explained a lot for me personally. The other one that I could recommend in terms of this issue is Eric Raines. Lives up in Portland. Did a lot of stuff with him on my YouTube channel. He's got some fantastic articles talking about his work with the whole issue of entity attachments.
The therapist?
Well, I would call him an energy worker or a light worker. He's kind of like a self-taught healer. He's a young guy. He was at Mount Shasta conference, and the whole time he's up there, he's doing healings on people. For me, it plays a huge overlooked part of the whole addiction issue, and also probably relationship problems, but certainly for addiction. Does that help? Okay. All right. Okay. So I want to just thank everybody for inviting me and letting me talk, and I'll get back to my interviews. All right.
I had no idea. That's amazing. Your fingers are deep in the pie.